Welcome to Business Media Exposure. Today we have serial entrepreneur Dr. Ray Bartell. Welcome, Ray.
Thanks, Linda. Good to be here.
Right, you are living proof that the best business ideas come from the most unusual places. You have a community-driven marketplace called B2Me Australia. But before we get into that, we need to know what sparked your entrepreneurial spirit.
It's a good question. It's really actually only been in the last, I think.
No, you've got that wrong.
What?
It's from when you were young at the family table.
But I want to talk about what my wife said.
What?
That I realised that I was a serial entrepreneur.
Okay, all right.
But I can, if you want, I can skip that and I can just go straight to the story.
Go to this.
How about we don't interrupt when you start? Otherwise, Michael's going, I have to edit something. Goodness me, I'll be here till midnight.
Yeah. All right, I'll go straight to the story.
You just do it as you like. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, do I start now?
Yeah, just say, hi Ray, welcome to the show. I'm just asking this question.
Hi Ray, welcome to the show. As I said before, you're living proof that the best business ideas come from the most unusual places. You had your entrepreneurial spirit started at a very young age, didn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, I'm a Perth boy myself, so I grew up here in Perth. And I won't name the suburb, but it wasn't the most affluent kind of place, and certainly not for the faint-hearted. But it was we grew up in a poor kind of home, but we always had something to eat, and Mum and Dad worked tirelessly to put us through a good education. But I come from a Maltese family, and I've got three brothers. They're big boys, ferocious eaters. And so when the dinner was put down on the table, it'd be shared around it, and my brothers would be right into it. So they'd be just scoffing the food, really, really quickly. And I was the type who was quite strategic. So I'd pace myself and I'd observe what was happening around the table. By the time they'd finished eating and I'd only just really started getting into it, what would happen is my brothers would just be lunge over the top of me and just be looking at the food that I had, and I'd be sitting there and I'm like, you guys are hungry, you actually want some more to eat. And so I said to them, you want this potato? And they're like, yep. Like 50 cents. And another brother's like, I want your chicken that's left, $2. So sometimes by the end of the night I'd walk away with $4 in my pocket from basically making money off my mum and dad's dinner. And I don't think they had any idea what was happening, because most of it was actually happening under the table. So I was passing broccoli under the table so mum and dad couldn't see. So that's when my entrepreneurial days started, I think. Yeah.
And you've had several professions since, one of which was initially an accountant. But you've got an interesting story to tell about how you've become very greatly ingrained in community.
So I guess my working career mainly started as an accountant, which then moved as a business manager in the private schooling sector. And also I was working in that sector for about 12 years, and I enjoyed the job, but I just had a real sense that there was something more, and I wanted to work, and support people that were, less fortunate. And whilst I didn't go looking for it, an opportunity came for me to go and work as a Director of Education for Baptist schools in Papua New Guinea. And most of those were in the Western Highlands, which is in tribal fighting areas. So very different kind of opportunity and something I wasn't used to. But look, I've got to say, I was there for 5 or 6 years in country, and I've got to say that it was one of the most enriching times of my life. I got to see an amazing sense of community, and before I actually left, in one of my appraisals in my work, I was told that I was very task orientated. And when I went to PNG, it teaches you very quickly to be relational orientated. And what I found is that it enriched my life because I became far more relational than I had been in the past. And I got to witness people in community and get a sense of what was happening. And in some of the work that we were doing, we would have buildings that were built in educational context. And we refused to get people from Moresby to come and put up these buildings. So we thought we would erect buildings based on local builders and local contractors. And what I saw in terms of how that strengthened the bonds of people, how trade with one another helped to build the social capital and financial capital of a community was just amazing. And so I then went on to do my PhD in the area of strength-based community development. Came back to Australia, and then I started thinking about how I could apply that in an Australian context.
And how did you?
Yeah, interesting. Well, through my study, I was doing strength-based community development, and I started to observe a few things. For instance, in schools and in sport clubs, business groups, what you often find is that people aren't very good in our context in understanding what the strengths are of their community. And so you can you can go to a sport club and your kid can be playing basketball, and you might be sitting right next to a plumber that you didn't even know was a plumber for 5 years. And all of a sudden you're like, hey, are you a plumber? I heard you were a plumber. They're like, yeah, well, if I'd have known 3 years ago, I could have actually used you. And so we don't really understand what the strengths are. And one of the key premise of good community development is understanding the strengths of your community, bringing those to the surface and mobilising them to the common good of others. And so basically B to me, which means business to me, was formed, which is a services finding platform. But it's endogenous driven, so it's actually linked in the community at that micro level so that we create these mini marketplaces where people can actually understand the strengths of their community groups and then do trade with one another.
But it's reputation driven as well, isn't it? Which is a big plus. Sure.
So if you go on to B2Me, you won't see AAA accounting or Bob's Plumbing or whatever it be. What we really wanted to do is, because we wanted a strong, high-quality, reputation-driven platform, we bring out the person from behind the brand. So your personal brand is actually, front and centre. And so if I've got my name on there as a consultant in education, business, community development, and so what people will see is they'll see Ray Bartell. So they see the person. And that means that, I've got to make sure I do the right thing, because if I don't, well, I'm putting my name on the line here. And so that's one of the unique things about B2Me, is certainly that personal branding component, which then opens you up to some amazing things like the social media component. So then you can start inviting people onto the platform to follow you. And so you can build up a number of followers, and you can build up a pipeline or a network around your particular business.
But it's businesses of any kind, isn't it? It's not just related to, say, consultancy or trade. It's everything, isn't it?
Yeah, look, we've tried to make it so that it's all encompassing. So we have cake decorators. We've got marketing people. We've got accountants. We've got the trades like plumbers, electricians. We've got driving instructors. We've even got an Elvis impersonator. So we have people in the music and entertainment industry that are even getting on there as well. So and it's great because they then start to form these community groups of interest. So you might have something like the marketing group, and then people that have a marketing bent to their work, they join that group so that anyone can go on, type in marketing, find a community, and there's a whole bunch of people that are in that space. So.
And it's grown incredibly, hasn't it? Because you had the launch only mid-year.
Yeah.
And at that launch you had 100 people, and they were diverse. They were from local governments, different industries, and you kicked off really well with that. And from that you then received a lot more inquiries as well, didn't you? How many have you got on the platform now?
Yeah, we've got over 1,000 people on the platform now, and which is great. But what I'm slowly learning is that it's not necessarily a numbers game. I tend to prefer to move with quality, and the other thing is that we've actually kept investors at bay because I like what Seth Godin says about not mortgaging today just because you're in a hurry. And so what I prefer is to have something which is quality and a trusted site, and spend the time in building relationships with the gatekeepers. So a lot of my effort is in talking with marketing people at a school, or the principal of a school, or the president of a soccer club or a footy club. So they're the gatekeepers of these communities. And our go-to-market strategy is to build those trust relationships with these people who already have a trust relationship with the people in their communities. And so we need to take the time to build that relationship, and then we'll be able to get access to markets. There's a lot of noise out there. It's very difficult to get in front of people when there's so many advertisements for this platform or that platform. And so, steady as she goes, I think we'll win the race. So that's really what we're doing.
But that's quite amazing that a startup actually turns away investors. So you have to have a very strong conviction of what you're doing is so purposeful and so right.
Yeah.
And willing to actually take it slow and steady.
Yeah, look, we put a fair bit of emphasis in the early stages in developing our values, making sure our values were rock solid, and then developing our purpose statement, which is very much about thriving individuals and flourishing communities. And that is our purpose, and that is our unwavering purpose. So that's like the 100-year purpose. That will never change. The methods may change along the way, but that's certainly, what we're really convicted about. And, I guess the startup journey for a founder, you make a lot of sacrifices. And last night I was just with the guys from Space to Co, and they were telling their story about the sacrifices that they have made, sacrifices of their spouses and family members, and that certainly, can understand that. And for Trish, my wife, she's had to put in extra hours, and sometimes some evenings she even goes and does some Uber Eats driving. And these are the things that you do in the life of a founder. That's just the reality. But I've been bootstrapping all the way through, which has meant that we've been able to hold off investors, and I think that our intention is to hold that off as long as we can. But there'll come a time where we want to scale. We may look at that, but at this stage we're happy to keep progressing how we're going.
And this particular model, this could be applied anywhere really in the world, couldn't it?
Yes, definitely. I've spoken to people in Canada. I've spoken to some people in Singapore as well, and others, and they've said, look, we can really see how that could apply really well in our country. The only thing is, in terms of us, we're wanting to really cement what we're doing here in WA, and then scale across to the eastern states, and then we'll obviously look at opportunities outside of that. But you're exactly right. This can scale very, very quickly. So.
And could you, if they wanted to do it themselves in other countries, would you actually say, well, look, I can come over as a consultant, help you set it up? So that would be another string to your bow.
Yeah, look, I would tend to say that we have found a lot of traction through community groups like schools, and so for us to move into another area or location, we'd be probably looking to have a forum where we can get these community leaders together, have some discussions around good community engagement. And then to see whether there's an appetite for, linking in with business communities. So they're the sorts of things that we're currently sort of thinking about at the moment.
And Ray, because you've had Slow and Steady, have you actually utilised media to help you?
Heading up to our official launch, which was just, as he said, it was just a great evening. We ended up using the services of Eyes on You Media, which was just fantastic. And so we used a lot of traditional media in that build-up. So we had, I think, some radio interviews. We had YouTube kind of videos as well. We had some paper write-ups as well in the traditional papers. So, that was really great. And what we ended up doing was we ended up putting that in our news and press section of our website, so people could follow the progress and the development, and they could even actually hear the story that was underpinning the development of B2Me, which I think, from what I've heard, really resonates with people, and they just get it. And I actually think that the sense of community is coming back full circle. We've moved very much towards these individualistic lives and fragmented lives, and people are saying, I think we're more together than where we're apart. And there seems to be that, return. And that's where B2Me wants to be positioned, is certainly in that space. So being able to tell our story and get it out there has been terrific. So an important part of our strategy. And the other point is, I guess, that when people search for B2Me, they not only find the official site, but underneath it they'll see interviews or links to other sites, which just enhances the legitimacy of what we're doing.
Well, it gives you the credibility as well.
Of course.
Because it's all from a third party.
Correct.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And the beauty of that is the fact that you do have a brilliant story. You've got great humorous stories about when you were in Papua New Guinea, and the fact that the progression of B2Me did evolve from there, and that you were far-sighted enough to see that there's a big gap, not only in Australia but also many places in the world, whereby you need to come together. You have to operate together, really, rather than alone. You get more done. It's a far more secure environment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh, definitely. That's certainly been a big learning for us in the whole process. So, for us, I don't see. B2Me has to be business so that we can actually finance what we're doing. But this is not a profit-driven or seen just as a profit-driven business. This is a mission. This is we're on a mission to actually recreate community in legitimate ways. That's what we're about, and that's what I'm driven to do. And certainly my team are as well. So, for us, that's important.